Hey, I have these mosquito bites. Can't you treat me in the ER?
Well, let's find out. In the late 1960s, the courts began to recognize that a hospital's emergency department has the duty to evaluate all patients who come for service and to render emergency care to those who need it, even this girl.
What do you mean, this girl? I am sick. I need care. This bitch. I am suffering. I need to see a doctor now. I need to lie down.
Stop it. This isn't a hospital. This is my room. You need to stop so I can tell you about EMTALA. Anyways, this law became known as the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act, also known as EMTALA. Although common law does not impose a duty on a hospital to treat emergency patients, many states have statutes that require hospitals to maintain emergency care facilities or arrange for such care. Let's explore the wonderful world of EMTALA.
Dr. Alberts, we have a patient here in the ER who is in need of your help. His name is Joe and he broke his leg while working on his house.
How serious is the patient's condition? Is he stable?
Yes, he is stable, but in a lot of pain. He does have a compound fracture and I think he will need surgery as soon as possible.
Well, I'm really busy right now with the patients that I have already assessed. I need to care for them before Joe's leg will get my attention.
Can he at least get some pain medication to help him feel better while he waits?
If I were in pain, I would want something for the pain too. If you need some help, get Dr. Brown to help. He has already seen Joe previously when he had pneumonia.
It's been several hours since I have seen Dr. Alberts. Where is he?
Oh, he went upstairs with Mr. Smith who was having chest pain. How is your patient doing?
His leg is getting worse, and he cannot feel his feet anymore. I am worried that he suffered some nerve damage. Dr. Alberts should have some here sooner. If the doctor doesn't come around soon, I bet this patient will sue the pants off of the doctor for being negligent.
Why is that?
He didn't come see my patient with the compound fracture in his leg.
So,
Dr. Alberts should have seen the patient.
That's true, but that doesn't mean that Dr. Alberts will be responsible for Joe's injuries. Dr. Brown has been here the whole time. Why didn't you ask him for some help?
I know that Dr. Alberts is the best. He knows how to treat compound fractures better than anyone I know.
Yes, but Dr. Brown knows this patient already, and Dr. Alberts has never seen the patient before. Dr. Brown has already treated Joe for something else here, so he would have been a better choice. In fact, he would have been the only choice.
Dr. Alberts still may get sued if Joe's leg doesn't heal. He's even still in pain.
He didn't get any pain medication?
No, I was waiting for Dr. Alberts. He said to hold on while he saw his other patients.
Yes, but Joe still should have gotten the pain meds. According to the Childs versus Wilds case, Dr. Alberts cannot be held liable for the damage to Joe's leg because he never established a patient-physician relationship. What's more is the Hill versus Ohio County case would say that he was not liable because he did not place the patient in any life-threatening situation by refusing to see him right away.
That's true, I guess. I better get Dr. Brown before Joe gets any worse.
My foot. Those doctors. Those hospitals. It's all their fault.
Hey, Dave. What's wrong with you?
I was digging in the trash the other night at that apartment complex down the street. I slipped and fell into the trash compactor. I broke my foot and was in so much pain. So I took out my cell and called 911. The ambulance came and got me out.
Oh my God. Then what happened?
First, they took me to the public hospital, but they wouldn't treat me and sent me away. They said their X-ray machine was broken, so they told the ambulance to take me to the private hospital on the other side of town.
Oh my God. That sounds terrible.
When we got to the private hospital, I told them I broke my foot, but I had no money. I asked them to help me, but they wanted money first. So I called my best buddy Joe. It took him 5 hours to come up with $50. We offered the money to the hospital, but they said it's not enough. They said checking out, splinting the foot, and giving me some pain pills will cost me $1,000.
so much. Then, what did you do?
The paramedics on the ambulance were nice enough to wrap my foot up, but then I had to take the bus to come back here myself. Arg. My foot, it still hurts and I can't feel my toes.
Jeez, be careful. Let me help you back up.
Those doctors, those hospitals, the paramedics, I'm gonna sue them all.
Dave, I think you have a good case against the doctors and the hospitals. Give the paramedics a break.
What, you think I can't win if I sue them?
Well, I think you have a good chance against the public hospital, according to the Williams versus Hospital Authority of All County case. A governmental hospital that has an emergency department has to extend aid to accident victims who need treatment for fracture. The hospital you are taken to is a public, tax-supported hospital. It doesn't have an absolute right to refuse providing emergency care. As for the private hospital, according to the cases of Stancher versus Sykes and Guerrero versus Copper Queen Hospital, they really can't refuse care just because you can't pay up front. They are a licensed private hospital with an emergency department, so they must extend care. If the hospital refuses to treat you or transfers you because of financial reasons, that is a breach of these hospitals' duty.
But what about the paramedics? All they did was wrap my foot up. Now I don't even know if I can still walk with my foot.
Well, historically, there have been very few lawsuits against the rescue personnel. They didn't make your injury worse by helping you. After all, by helping you, they are performing a discretionary act requiring personal decision and judgment. I think what we need to do now is to find you a doctor for that foot.
All right.
Hi Joe, this is your first day working here. I'd like to talk to you a little about EMTALA before you get your formal training.
Sure. What about it?
So, do you know what EMTALA is?
Well, I remember that Congress passed EMTALA in 1985 to prevent hospitals from dumping patients who were uninsured or unable to pay.
Right. What else do you know about EMTALA?
I know that for a hospital with an emergency department, like us, if a person comes to the emergency department requesting to be checked out or have treatment, we must do a screening exam to determine if there is a true emergency.
How do you define a true emergency?
Well, an emergency medical condition is one where the symptoms are acute or serious enough that, if we don't treat them immediately, the patient's health can be put into jeopardy. Their bodily functions can be seriously impaired, or they can suffer a serious dysfunction of an organ or body part. For pregnant women, an emergency medical condition would be one where there isn't enough time to transfer the patient to another hospital before the delivery, or if the transfer can harm the mother or the unborn child.
Good. In simpler terms, an emergency medical condition is one that can potentially cause a loss of life or limb if untreated. You know, EMTALA doesn't just apply to the uninsured or those who can't pay. It applies to all patients. An EMTALA violation can cause the hospital to be fined or be excluded from Medicare. So make sure that when someone comes to the emergency department for treatment, you do a good physical exam and exercise good clinical judgment. Use the proper diagnosis tests to figure out if it is a true emergency. Before you transfer a patient to another hospital, you must stabilize them first, unless the patient requests to be transferred right away. In that case, the hospital needs to give what treatment it can to minimize the risks of transferring. You also need to find a capable hospital that is willing to take the patient, and make sure to send their medical records with them. Oh, and you have to make sure that the staff working on the transfer are qualified, and proper equipment is used.
So, unless the transfer is in the patient's best interest, we have to stabilize the patient first, right?
Right. Once the patient is stable, you don't necessarily have to admit the patient. At that point, discharging or transferring the patient as appropriate is not going to violate EMTALA anymore. Just make sure that you don't delay stabilizing the patient just to find out if they can pay, or if they have insurance.
Got it. I'm sure I'll hear more about EMTALA when I do my formal training. Can I get a cup of coffee now?
You know, I'm not feeling so good this morning.
What's wrong?
I've been belching all morning, and I feel this pressure over my stomach area.
You better go to the emergency room to get checked out. Want me to go with you?
No. I think I can get there myself. It's only a few blocks away. I wonder if I'm getting a stomach ulcer or something like that.
So what did the doctors say?
I told them how I felt. They listened and pressed on my stomach. They told me to just go to the pharmacy and get some over-the-counter antacids. That should help for now.
It's been 2 hours. Are you feeling any better?
No. I'm sweating like crazy. Arg. And I can't feel my left arm. Take me to the hospital. I think I'm having a heart attack.
You're so lucky to be alive. How come the doctors didn't check you out thoroughly the first time before sending you home? I heard it can be a violation of EMTALA. We should get them reported.
That's what I thought too. So I called up my attorney buddy Elvis. He told me that considering the symptoms I described the first time I went to the ER, the doctors at the ER seemed to have done appropriate medical screening to determine if my condition was an emergency.
I mean, what constitutes appropriate medical screening?
Elvis said that EMTALA requires hospitals with emergency rooms to establish fitting, proper, and suitable procedures, within the capability of the hospital, to medically screen both indigent and non-indigent patients to determine if their symptoms are life or limb-threatening if left untreated. So, it really comes down to whether a reasonable physician would consider the hospital's screening procedures adequate, more likely than not, to determine whether the patient's condition is life or limb-threatening. The ER really didn't have the duty to stabilize my condition until they determined that I was having an emergency condition. So, they may have been negligent in the fact that they missed I was having a heart attack, but it seems that they determined in good faith that I was not having an emergency medical condition, before deciding to send me home. The purpose of EMTALA is to prevent hospitals from patient dumping, not to create a cause of action for medical malpractice and emergency rooms. Although, if I actually suffered damages from this incident, I would be able to sue the hospital and its doctors under tort law for negligence. The hospital, however, did not violate EMTALA.
They were lucky this time you're okay. Otherwise we would have sued them.
Well, I think I'm lucky to be alive.
Does EMTALA apply to me wherever I am or only if I am in the emergency department?
Well, if you are in the emergency department and you request examination or treatment, they must treat and stabilize you or transport you.
What about if I am in the lobby?
Yes, in fact, if you come to the hospital and the hospital determines you have an emergency medical condition, the hospital must provide stabilization or transfer.
What about the bathrooms?
Counts as the hospital.
The basement?
Still counts.
My car in the parking lot?
Counts.
I have climbed a tree in the courtyard?
Counts. 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 Counts.
What about a patient in transfer?
Well, if the patient is being transferred in an ambulance owned or operated by the hospital, that is considered the emergency room. In fact, the hospital property includes the building and grounds and the ambulances wherever they are located. This has been stretched to an hospital-owned ambulance that was on the way to the hospital and was redirected. That was deemed a violation because the hospital was not on diversionary status.